Shri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Agajanana Padmarkam Gajananam Aharnisham Anekadam Tam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe. Welcome to all for this session on Ganesha Purana to the chapter 23, in which we'll now going to see the link between Daksha and the story of Kalyana. In fact, after hearing what had happened to Daksha at his child, all his birth defects, everything, King Bhima was wondering why exactly, for what sin of him from the previous birth, that during the very birth itself he was blind, deaf, and covered with so many wounds, oozing the blood and the pus. What was the sin committed by Daksha in his previous life? And on hearing this, Vishwamitra was telling the story of Kalyana, the Vaishya, and how Kalyana himself was a very devotee. He was a very good person, offering uh, offering great gifts to the Brahmins, and he was always performing austerities. He had the best of the son called Ballala, who was a great devotee of Gajanana. But on one day, Ballala went along with all his friends into the forest, and they were lost worshipping Lord Gajanana. But the parents of the other children, they came and complained to Kalyana, saying that your son is spoiling our kids, so please discipline your kid. So then Kalyana, got furious, and went with a club, and he started beating Ballala and tied him to a tree and threw away the stone he was worshipping as Gajanana. And then, with all cries, Ballala started pleading to Gajanana and asked him how you can be a Vignaharta, how you can be a savior of all your devotees when I am beaten so much badly by my father. And then Lord Gajanana appeared there and cured all the wounds and the blood on the body of Ballala and gave him several boons. But then, by that time, Ballala has already cursed his father to become deaf, dumb, and hunchbacked, covered with wounds on his body. Then even Lord Gajanana told him that all those curses will come true. And now, what has this story related to Daksha? We'll now going to hear about it. The sage continues. That means here the sage is the Brigu who is telling the story to Somakanta. After he had heard the Vishwamitra's speech, Bhima questioned Vishwamitra further. Bhima, the king, asked, from hearing the adventures of Daksha, my mind was really calmed. But tell me, what was the fate of Vaishya Kalyana and how Vaishya Kalyana was related to Daksha? Vishwamitra then said, listen single mindedly, O King Bhima, as I am going to tell you the tale. Blood started flowing from Kalyana's body immediately because of Ballala's curse. And besides having innumerable flowing wounds, he suffered from deafness and blindness and become dumb. With a foul stink emanating from his body, his wife Indumathi saw this unexpected condition, and in response to it, she grieved, saying, what is this? What is this? How did this condition befall my guiltless husband, who is wise, munificent, devoted to the gods and the Brahmins, well grounded in the meaning of Dharmashastras, and fully satisfied with his own wife? He never made a mistake. Kalyana's sole mistake is on that day, upon hearing the complaints from his fellow townsmen, he got angry and he beaten up Ballala. But in the past, he was a very good person. He lived according to the Dharma Shastras, and he was always satisfied with his own wife. He had never gone behind any other woman, and he was devoted to the gods and the Brahmins. In spite of that, why he is cursed with so many problems? The sage continued. After lamenting much in this way, she began sighing repeatedly. But on hearing that he had bound her son in the forest, still weeping, she went into the forest with the townspeople to where her son was bound to a tree. But at present, her son was not bound to the tree. In the temple that where she saw the god Gananayaka with his four arms, three eyes, and his vermilion colored body, and her son Ballala, who was worshipping Gajanana there, in the same place where there was a forest, where Ballala was bound to the tree. Now there was a huge temple in which the Lord Gajanana was being worshipped by Ballala. Noticing that he was free, that he was without wounds and his body unmutilated, Indumathi spoke angrily to the townspeople, repeatedly abusing them. Because it's the same townspeople who came to her and they told her that your husband has tied him up to a tree and he has beaten him up. He was mutilated. But now no wounds are there on Ballala's body. He was perfectly all right. Why did those who speak the truth abuse me in my husband's presence? How can you tell untruth? My son is all right. Having left such a man as him, I have come here because I love my son. Though her husband were become deaf, dumb, hunch, and suddenly wounds all over his body with blood oozing out. In spite of that, Indumati left her husband at home and came in search of her son because of her love for the son. But now look, my son is manifesting such devotion to the god. Even all the townsmen were astounded by him and afterwards could barely speak. But after seeing his body reddened with vermilion, smeared with red sandalwood paste, clothed in red, splendidly adorned with red flowers and garlands, without the thought of I, without ego, as though he were a Vignapa without a trunk, he has become almost similar to Gajanana. Ballala has become almost similar to Gajanana with the same brilliance, with the same calmness, with the same silence. He was completely devoted and immersed in the devotion of God. Someone said, who could understand the glory of his great devotion? Now, his mother, Ballala's mother, Indumathi, lost her grief after seeing her son like this and rejoiced. Then she embraced him, affection streaming from her breast. She said to him, let's go to our own house, which was being devastated as a great misfortune has befallen on your father. You must provide some remedy for it, O my wise son. We were the most fortunate pair in the world in having a son like you. There are the wounds all over the body of your father. It flows with blood and emits a putrid smell. His face is black and he is emaciated, deaf and blind. That's how your father is. I have come to inform you about him. He struck you as his uh, because as a father it was his right to strike you, and even if that was frivolous, it is not a transgression according to the Puranas, because Puranas allow the father to discipline his children, his son and the daughter. And according to the Puranas, the revealed and the remembered texts consider the duties of a son reflect on his good health. Here, the aspect of revealed and remembered texts are basically called as Shruti and Smriti. Smriti is one which is known to everybody, that they remember it. That's a remembered text. Shruti is what is being heard and reflected. I mean, that's passed on from generation to generation. So these are all part of the Dharma Shastras. Your father loves you, so in the public you must praise your father most highly. As a good son who is renowned should carry out his parents' command, and he should respect, nourish, and protect both of them. Devise a remedy using herbs and mantras and the petitioning of the god, and then fix your vision on me, O my son. You will have renown in this world, and I will have happiness to you, bearing you as my son. After he had heard her words, Ballala made his speech. Ballala said, "What of the mother? What of the father? What of the son? What of the friend? Everything is done by Vignaraja, and it is traditionally said that everything depends on him. Who is God? Who is mother? Who is father? These are all creation of the God. The God has decided that some women will be your mother so that you will take birth in her womb, and her husband will automatically become your father. And it is that the Lord Gajanana's wish you will have relatives, you will have friends, but all of them comes at the wish of the God. Therefore, O fortunate woman, Vinayaka is my real father, my mother. One attains the appropriate result according to the activity what one performs. I have entrusted my life to Gajanana, God of the gods, and because of his profound devotion, he has given me knowledge and life. Because he destroyed the temple, cast away the god, and struck me, who is so devoted to Vinayaka, he has experienced the appropriate result for that. He is talking about his father. Because his father has strike him, not just strike him, he destroyed the Vinayaka's temple and threw away the image from the spot. So, because of that reason, he is suffering the resultant of that karma. In consideration of the fact that you are not my mother, nor he my father, but that the God Gajanana alone is my mother, father, and God of everything, that he alone is the giver of knowledge, the protector and destroyer, when he takes the form of time, that his own form is everything, that he is the Lord of gods and embodies Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, my being struck by that cruel, evil man is as pointless as his casting away of the God's image and his destruction of the temple. That he is Ballala is now no longer bothered about what his father, what the so-called a person who till then considered as his father has done. That he beat him, he threw away Gajanana's statue, he destroyed the temple. That very moment, he no longer became my father. Now my only father, my real father or mother or the relative or my guru, everything is Lord Gajanana. Looking at his face will constitute a major offense. If I come to home and if I look at the face of your husband, it will become a sin for me. Casting aside your affection for me, go and serve your husband. Vishwamitra continued. After she had heard her son's words, she addressed him again. Mother Indumathi said, "As a favor, kindly and affectionately utter a counter curse so that your father can be cured." And at that, her son Ballala said, "In a future existence, that means in his next life, you, the boon seeker, will be his mother." That means the husband and wife will now become mother and son. And one like him, the Kalyana, your husband, will become your son. O strong vowed woman, he who is called Kalyana will become a bull of the Kshatriyas named Vallabha, and you will be known by the name. I'm sorry, there is a mistake in this translation. He will be that same Kalyana will going to be called as Daksha, and you by the name Kamala. Your son will be known by the name. Vallabha is the person to whom Kamala will get married in her next life, whereas her present life's husband, Kalyana, will become her son called by the name Daksha. This is where the link of the story is. The husband and wife, Kalyana and Indumathi, in their previous life, had now become Daksha and Kamala, the mother, son, and the mother in this present life. Vallabha will perform austerities for 12 years, remaining in the highest condition of restraint in order to remove Daksha's blindness, deafness, muteness, and his wounds. Failing to achieve his result, O beautiful faced woman, he will abandon you along with your son from the house. Then you will live in a foreign country, O fortunate woman. As a result of fate, because Kalyana had also done some good deeds by the will of Dviradanana, that means Gajanana. Dviradanana, it means two-mouthed person. I mean, elephants will have two mouths. You may be knowing one at the end of its trunk and one behind the trunk. So Dviradanana means one who is having two mouths. Your son will become whole by the virtue of touching of some excellent Brahmin who happens to be the devotee of Gajanana. That's how the same Kalyana in this life was born as Daksha with so many birth defects, and his wife Indumathi became his mother Kamala, and who was carrying him from village to village, begging the people for their livelihood. But then finally, because of the breeze from Mudgala's body, he was worshipped. He was miraculously got cured, and not just that, when he performed the austerities so quickly, he could able to get the darshan, he could able to get the vision of Lord Gajanana because of the good deeds what Kalyana did in the previous life. So in this life, Daksha could able to get, in the form of Daksha, he could able to get the vision of God so quickly. Gananatha will appear there just then, and Daksha will obtain a celestial body from Dviradanana. Everything about cause of that curse has now been related, O beautiful woman, and you have also been told what will happen. Understand it, and please, you may go and take care of your husband. Saying this, he turned his mother away. She then left full of grief and unhappiness and a certain feeling of outrage. Ballala ascended a celestial carriage produced by his devotion as decreed by Gajanana, and then he went to heaven. It's basically he went into Ganapati Loka, the world of Ganapati, Gajanana. Now I have explained everything about which you asked. The Vaishya obtained that destiny after two births, and everything then happened just as Ballala said. He was born and became Kamala, and the Kalyana was born as Daksha in his present life. So ends the 23rd chapter of Upasana Khanda of the glorious Ganesha Purana, in which in this chapter we heard about the backstory, the previous life story of Daksha, that how he got cursed by his own son Ballala, and because of that reason he was suffering from birth defects. Namaste Sharada Devi काश्मीरपुरवासिनी त्वामहं प्रार्थये नित्यं विद्यादानं च देहि मे. Goodbye.